Welcome to the video about my best finished works for this year. It was difficult to select top 10. Let's start from the picture from Kirby Razana's Vault Within Vaults. Here we have magical compass, and it was challenging because I knew from the beginning that I wanted to do a real halo around the sun in the central part and a very dark, almost black-blue background near the frame of the compass. So with just polychromos pencils, such a gradient was complicated for me. When I managed to do this inner part of the background, the rest, golden frame, planets and magical creatures, it was quite easy task to finish. And the outer part of this compass I did with acrylic paint, on top of which I added similar colors of pencils to continue this cosmic background. I think that in such way the whole page look more well balanced. So after this big challenge with the background, I definitely decided that it will be included in my top 10. Next selected picture is from A Romantic Country second tale, and when I saw this one it immediately reminded me about Harry Potter, about Hogwarts study rooms, and it was a real challenge to color all the magical, interesting things which we can find on the shelves, and in the same time, still not to lose the main character, the studying girl. She's on the side of the page, so it was a little bit risky not to lose her. I again tried to divide various magical objects into several coloring groups, and when I look at this page, I feel a little bit sorry that during this year I neglected my romantic country second tale. I think that next year I need to do more pictures here because all of them are very challenging but at the same time very interesting to color. Next page is from Fragile Vault. Today we will have a lot of pictures from Razana's books. He definitely is my favorite artist for this year. So I included this picture maybe not because of iguana itself, but because of the background. In the beginning of the year, I promised myself that I will learn how to do better skies and more interesting clouds. So on many pictures I tested various color combos for my dramatic clouds, for dusk and dawn. I think it's said here. With Prismacolor pencils, I managed to do quite nice sky and good reflection of the sunshine on the clouds and on the stones. I tried to color as realistic as possible after watching a TV documentary about these very interesting creatures and their evolution. But of course, to catch the color of iguana's body and in the same time to make them interesting, not simply gray, was challenging. So when I used together orange and aqua green for their body, I told myself that I messed up, even if on reference pictures I saw such a color combo. But after I finished the whole body and smaller iguanas, I think that everything worked quite well and that I managed to show here even the cycle of life of iguana, that part of the day they spend catching warm from light from the sun and part of their life they have to dive for their food. Next one is obviously by Jasmine Beckett Griffiths from her first book, and finally I did this Captain Molly Morgan. I wanted to do her for a long time and I colored it in March when I definitely needed to color something which with strong character, and I definitely think that this Molly Morgan is quite badass girl. I also did her friend Polly with interesting green hair, so I decided that Molly also deserved to have quite bright and intense hair color, but most of all here I am proud of her skin. With Prismacolor pencils I managed to do skin with visible tan because I think that she spends a lot of time under tropical sun. If Kerber is my artist of the year, then the series of the year is definitely mythographic books. I added many of them to my collection this year, and even if I didn't color a lot of pictures, each and every of them I enjoyed immensely. And I think that next year I will enjoy them even more because now they don't print those hidden objects. In my works, I usually prefer to do watercolor or acrylic background. Well, there are rumors that in their last books, paper is slightly thinner, so I am a little bit concerned. But we will see. At least for this unicorn, everything worked really well. I selected this page for coloring because I wanted to do daffodils, but I was concerned regarding color of the background. Here I managed to find perfect two shades of acrylic gouache by Artisa, and with this deep blue and bluish green colors, background created very nice contrast for the daffodils, for the crystals, and to the body of the unicorn. Also, shading on unicorn was challenging, but I do love how I managed to do it. It's white, it's shining, but in the same time it's not flat. The most complicated part was those falling vertical lines, which I turned into maybe drops of water from the mane of the unicorn to the bottom part. So I definitely consider this one as my best work in mythographic series for this year. It was very difficult to select one of the pictures which I finished in Kanoka Yakuza books. Recently I prefer to color in Symphony, maybe because of the smaller size of the book, or maybe because in Menuet and Rhapsody I already saw so many finished pictures that it's difficult to invent something from myself. And that's exactly why I included this picture with Bunny. I saw amazing pictures made by other colorists and I was afraid to start it myself. But in the end, I think that everything worked quite well. As usual, I much more prefer to color all those flower pots, rusted watering can, uh, vase made from stone, and flowers than bunnies. So I can't say that bunnies are perfect, but the whole composition I do love. And as I said, selection was difficult because I'm really proud of all my finished Kanoka Yakuza book, but I decided that this one will be my favorite for the year. Next point, it's a little bit of cheating because it's not one but two pictures included in my top 10, but they are spread. In one book, it's from Mythic World by Kirby, and wasn't able to select which one I prefer more. I love all my finished pictures in this book. I also appreciate my efforts which I put into each of them because I color with polychromos pencils, sometimes with addition of Prismacolors, but without help of watercolors or something else. So I spent long hours on them, and I selected this spread because theme of it's unusual for me. All those Asian pictures, interesting mythology creatures. I don't color them very often, so I had to learn about them, and I think that they have traditional colors for their countries, for their areas, and I think that I also had here a very good practice on coloring their clothes, on gemstones and gold. Next picture is from Colorless Kingdom, and it's very precious for me for two reasons. The first, because it's actually my first coloring in Colorless Kingdom by Chris Ortega. I purchased this book more than a year ago and still hadn't touched it because I was afraid to mess up such a beautiful pictures printed on thin paper. But when I did this one, I realized that by combining various media, softer and harder pencils, Prismacolors and polychromoses, and alcohol markers for the background, I can actually do quite decent works even on this paper. So, being encouraged in such a way, I purchased myself a second book in Colorless Kingdom series, and I intend to dedicate a lot of my time in the next year to the beautiful books by Chris Artega. The second reason why it's very precious for me because I did this one for a coloring challenge, Color with Ukraine, when the theme was brave Ukrainian women. I selected this warrior woman to show that many women are indeed in our army. Many of them are helping as volunteers, and I think that this picture is in the same time shows the strength and the beauty of this warrior. I am glad that I did her with quite unusual hair. I think that it matched colors of her armor and banner behind. And you know that I love to color metals, so here I enjoyed doing both steel and gold. Next one, it's again two pictures because I colored this year so many pictures by Teresa Goodrich that I was totally unable to select just one. So picture on the left I colored for my birthday. You know that usually in August I select something with a lot of sweets and cakes and I publish it as a color along for my birthday. And on the right I have my recent work for the Christmas. I think that here I enjoy bright colors. Well, all my works in Teresa Goodrich books are bright, but here I do love difference between colors for interior and exterior scenes here, and that's why I included these two. Indeed, I colored a lot in Teresa Goodrich. I usually feel quite relaxed when I color in her books. Color selection for me usually is quite easy, but sometimes I want to color one by one, but I need to stop myself because I start to feel like a copy center that I start to repeat colors, and that's why I usually try to do maybe two or three pictures for a month. In such a way, I continue to be very inspired to color in her books. I try to switch between her books, and I do love that this year she created several beauties like Village Charm and Kitchen. I especially love Kitchen book. So choice was difficult, but I think that these two pictures they deserve to be included in my top 10. And finally, two pictures again. I included them in top 10 because they memorize for me quite special moment. On the left, it's a collage from Vault Within Vaults by Kerber Razanes. On the right, page from Goddesses by Coco Vayo. And picture on the left, it's the last one which I finished before the war. Picture on the right, it's the first one which I started to color after war started, when obviously for some time I hadn't colored, I hadn't touched anything um, creative for several weeks, maybe months, and of course I was in huge stress and I totally lost ability to read, and I was also afraid that I won't be able to color something beauty. But then, step by step, I started to return to coloring, and I found that even if I usually try not to put anything negative into my colorings, coloring helped me to calm myself and at least to express some of my feelings. So picture on the left, it was difficult because it has mass of various textures, objects, things, so it was complicated how to color it well balanced. Most of all, I am proud of the central part which reminded me about carved hieroglyphs into the surface of the stone, and all other elements I tried to group into pairs according to their colors. And well, it was also a long work. Some of it I enjoyed, like doing all those metal chairs. Some of them were complicated, like landscapes or buildings, but in the end, everything worked quite well. Nemesis, the goddess from Greek mythology, it was my first work in Goddesses by Coco Vaio. Well, paper is far from perfect, but again, by combining softer and harder pencils, I managed to color it, and for me, it was much more important to express my feelings than to create something really perfect in this book. But I am quite happy with the result, and I am very grateful that this picture helped me to return to coloring. Thank you for watching. It was really fun to look back at my coloring year, and I hope that next year I will manage to do something similar in beauty.